It's time we look back on our economy lessons because things are just not working. Let's start from the beginning. First of all, economy revolves around what? Yep, you guessed it. Money. Bien sûr. To give you an idea, 86% of the world's wealth is in the hands of less than 10% of its population. Wealth is concentrated to a point where half of the Earth's inhabitants possess only 0.5% of it, while the richest 1% owns only 50% of it. How about that? If you have a hard time to follow, next lesson, we'll learn how to paint a dock with numbers. What is fascinating is that globally, we keep telling ourselves we are getting richer. We meaning everybody but yours truly and 90% of the population. In fact, it's the gap between the rich and the poor that's getting richer. For example, in Canada, in the last 20 years, almost 40% of revenue growth went in the wealthiest 1%'s pockets. Crazy, isn't it? And this phenomenon is accelerating. 200 years ago, the richest countries were 3 times richer than the poorest one. 2 centuries later, the richest are 80 times more richer than the poorest. Can't stop the progress. But it is mainly in the last 30 years that the richest got even richer. 30 years back, that would take us into the neocons austerity era of Reagan and Thatcher. What a coincidence. Economy. It's a communicating vessel, which means that someone has their hand in your pocket and that someone has already too much money. But this blatant unbalance is not one according to Adam Smith's disciples, who believes the market tends to balance itself. Adam Smith is a philosopher and economist who believed in the virtues of free market economy to the point of defending the idea of an invisible hand regulating and balancing the market like the hand of a magician. Yeah, I know. But see, in the 18th century, to cure a migraine, we believed nothing was better than a good bleeding out while sticking cloves up your nose. But that's another story. We know now that Adam Smith's invisible hand is as efficient as an invisible parachute. You probably understood that a market that creates and maintains a balance that brings 90% of the world's richness to a few individuals is practical. Normal, because if we were to share the richness between everyone, that would be called socialism. And in socialism, there's the word social, meaning people, and that is just bad, okay? Anyway, there's not enough wealth for everyone. More so if you don't take into account the $20,000 to $30,000 billion hidden in tax havens. As I was saying, we're broke. Here's an irrelevant detail. If you were to tax only the interest that these $20,000 billion generate, there would be enough to fully finance the United Nations anti-poverty plan. This is just a detail. With only $10 billion, we could send every underprivileged child in the world to school. Why would we do that? I mean, who needs a high school diploma to work in a mine? Come on. Nevertheless, there is enough money hidden away to improve public services and lower taxes. This is where Adam Smith's disciples go crazy. So, what is a tax haven? It's a place where not too many questions are asked and where money gets out sparkling clean, but mostly not taxed. We know how irritating it is to finance schools and road construction. On this paradise island, the safe is not buried in the sand, but in a bank owned by men wearing expensive ties. It's the kind of places where you can launder cocaine and international terrorism money, hide secret election funds, recycle Italian mafia's cash to help out the Vatican, Useful. So, there's not enough wealth. And to make sure we believe this nonsense, the big guys have got the brilliant idea to buy mass media. But we're getting off track here. One important notion to remember, though, a left-wing guy who commits fraud is a scumbag, and a right-wing guy who commits fraud is called a financier. And financiers are lucky because they can speculate like crazy on the worthless mortgages. It's the US Treasury, meaning the people's money, that cleans up the mess. Why do without? Remember 07-08 big crisis? Nothing to do with a Lindsay Lohan scandal. I mean a real, full-blown financial crisis. Well, even with $700 billion of your dollars, speculation and bank secrecy still exist. Financiers can speculate on the impoverishment of a country or take out a life insurance to make money off an employee's death. Wow, capitalism is an impressive system. Here's the definition you should remember. Write this down. Capitalism equal making the risk public and the profits private. The crisis consequences? Austerity measures for everyone, unless you can buy your way out of it. See, those actions are called for by politicians afraid to see their country's credit rating go down. And this keeps getting better. Countries borrow from the banks and the public money save the banks. Cynical is not the right word. Crazy. Nope. We'll have to invent a new one. The funniest thing, if I may, is that austerity will cause deficits that will be eliminated by demanding more to the middle class, afraid to see the famous 1% flee to another country. Personal note, their money's already there, so... Then we cut even more into public services, which benefits the private sectors and the banks that make even more profits. That's what we call a vicious circle, see? Will it ever change? When American banks heard that Obama would win the election promising changes, they did as always. They bet on the winning horse. The result? Obama never cleaned up Wall Street. Instead, Wall Street continued to clean the payrolls. Yes, Adam Smith was right. Economy is pretty far out. Everything is balanced. In a way. End of the lesson.